Okay guys, welcome to subtracting decimals, which we're going to do today. And let me get my pen up and organized. I'm going to use, we'll use a different color today. Let's use blue. We'll use blue again. And today we're going to talk about subtracting decimals. So in your notes, write down the title, subtracting decimals, which is right there. Put that in your heading at the top of your sheet of paper. We have a couple pages that we need to do today. And I'm going to get through this and so that you guys know how to subtract decimals. Our first thing I want to talk about is modeling subtracting decimals. We need to know how to model and what subtracting decimals understands. So I'm just going to use kind of, little strips and blocks to illustrate this. So if I want to model 2.71 minus 1.47, I'm going to draw out what that would represent as far as individual units. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to make 100 strips. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that's going to represent one whole amount. Okay, and I'm going to make another one, and that's going to represent 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That's not very even, but that's okay. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's going to represent my 2. And then my 0.71, what I'm going to do for those is I am going to make tenths. Okay, so I'll have a tenths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm going to have 7 of those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And this is going to represent 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and this is going to represent 2.71. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I make 7 of these strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I got one more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I'm going to make 1 to represent my hundredths. Okay, so what I have here is 2 point and then 7, 1. Okay, so I have them broken into basically hundredths. So one square represents 1/100th. So I put 10 together in a strip of 10. I have 7 of those for my 7 tenths. Okay, so there's my 7 tenths, and I have 2 whole amounts for my 2 whole. Okay, and then I could do the same for my 1.47. So I'm going to have to scroll down a little bit here, and I'm going to change my color and make these red. And I'm going to do the same thing for 1.47. So I'm going to make my box. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so I have 100 there, and then I got 1.47. So I'm going to make 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. And let's count them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then I got 7 individuals that I cannot group together because it's not enough. Okay, now I'm going to subtract. I can use my modeling to help. I'm going to start with my smaller amounts. First, I'm subtracting 2.71 from 1.47. Now I'm going to switch colors to a green here to illustrate this. Now what I have here is when I subtract my 1 from my 7, I can't do it because I only have 1 here and I have 7 there. So what I need to do is I need to borrow. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the 7 and make that a 6. So I'm going to get rid of a strip here, and I'm going to add 10 individual ones. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I got rid of a strip and I added individual ones. Now, because I'm subtracting, I can cross off 1 for 1 with my top amount for my bottom amount, and I'm left with 3. So I have 3 hundredths left. Okay. Now I'm going to cross off my tenths. Okay, so I'm going to look in there, and I'm going to cross off 1 for 1. So I cross off that one with that one there, that one, and I'm just going to work my way through, and I'm left with 2 tenths here. Now I'm going to move on. Now notice I start with my lowest place value and I'm moving to bigger place values. I'm going to cross off 1 unit there with 1 unit there, and I'm left with that. So So my final answer is going to be what I have circled and what I have left. I have 1 whole amount, and I have 2 tenths, and I have 3 hundredths. 1 and 23 hundredths. And that would be my final answer. Okay? And that's how we can do this using modeling. I could do the same thing for adding by combining them and then putting them into groups. Okay? If you need to finish, if you need to finish copying that down, go ahead. And I'm going to move on to my next slide. Okay, in the next slide, I'm going to go back to my blue pen here. In my next slide, we are just going to talk about subtracting decimals. Now we're going to do it showing our work. So for this, I'm going to do 14.16, line up my decimal points. I'm sorry, I can't see that. To subtract your decimals, you must line up place values, which is your decimal points. So 14.16 minus 8.52. And I'm going to subtract those. 6 minus 2 is 4. 1 minus 5, I can't do. Here's my borrowing that I just illustrated. That's going to become 11. I add 10 to that number. I take 1 away from that one. 11 minus 5 is 6. Decimal point moves down. I cannot do 3 minus 18, so that becomes 13. Add 10. Take 1 away from the number to the left, and that becomes 13 minus 8, which is 5. And I get 5.64. Okay? For B, I got to line up my decimal points. I don't have a decimal point at 32 written, so it's after the 32. So that's going to be 32, and then minus 11.72. Got to put my decimal point here and put the zeros here. Now when I subtract with zeros, I can't do 0 minus 2, so I have to borrow. So I'm going to add 10 to that one, and that's going to become a 10. Now when I borrow, I don't have anything to borrow from there. So what I have to do is go over to the next one and borrow from this one and make that a 1, and then this one becomes a 9. They always become, the first 0 in a row becomes 10. Any consecutive 0 after that is a 9. So I have to keep borrowing until I can get to a number I can borrow from. I borrow from the 1, or the 2, and that becomes a 1. Now I can subtract. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 7 is 2. Decimal point moves down. 1 minus 1 is 0. 3 minus 1 is 2. And I'm left with 20.28 or 20 and 28 hundredths. And that is my final answer. Okay, I'm going to go to my next slide. So if you need to pause, go ahead. Alright, here we are at our next slide. Nope, that slide should have been gone. Let's go to our next slide then. Okay, here's our next slide. Evaluating a variable expression. To evaluate a variable expression, I first have to substitute in this for my variable. Okay, so in A it's 11.63 minus A, so I'm going to do 11.63 minus 4.2. I'm going to put a 0 here to line it up. And the 4.2 came from that A, which comes from this 4.2 up here. 3 minus 0 is 3. 6 minus 2 is 4. Decimal point moves down. 1 minus 4, I can't do. That becomes 11, and that becomes 0. 11 minus 4 is 7, and that's what I'm left with, 7 and 42 hundredths. Now, some of you could have done that without borrowing and just done 11 minus 4, which is fine. For example B, I'm going to do A. So A is 4.2 minus 3.26. So I'm going to write that out. A goes here, B goes there. Now I'm going to line them up. 4.2 minus 3.26. I got to put a 0 here. Okay, that's going to become 10. I need to borrow, and that's going to become 1. 10 minus 6 is 4. I cannot do 1 minus 2, so that's going to become 11. I got to take 1 away from that, and that's going to be a 3. 11 minus 2 is 9. Decimal point moves down. 3 minus 3 is 0. So I get 0.94 or 94 hundredths. Okay, again, if you need to pause this to write it down, go ahead. I'm going to move on to the next example. In my next example, we're going to work on our estimating, our rounding. Okay, so for this one I have to round. Now the first one is very small numbers, so I have to round to what I have. So in this one I'm going to round to the nearest hundredth spot because that's the first number they have and it's going to be close to my actual answer. So I round this to hundredths, I have to look at that. That's going to be a 1, so this is going to be 0.06 minus the 3. I'm going to look at the 2, is going to keep it at 3, 0.03. Now they all line up. It's pretty easy to do. You could do this in your head, and you'd end up with 0.03. Okay, and that would be your estimated answer. It's not the actual answer, it's your estimated answer. Again, we are rounding. For B, I'm going to do 12.07 minus 8.9. I'm going to do the nearest whole number. So that 12 is going to stay at 12 minus the 8.9. I'm going to switch that to a 9. So I have 12 minus 9. 12 minus 9 is 3. And that is my final answer. Again, if you need to pause this, go ahead and pause this. I'm going to move on to my next slide. In our last slide, it's a little bit of consumer math here. So what I want you to do is decide about how much change should you get back, okay? So if this was your situation, about how much change. So this is going to be a rounding, real life situation. If your bill costs $6.83 and you give the clerk a $20 bill, how much should you get back? When you get your money back, what should you expect to see in your hand? Well, I'm going to round that. I'm going to do 20, the amount I gave the clerk, minus the amount of my bill. 6.83, now I'm going to round 6.83 to 7. Okay, the 8's going to make the 6 a 7, so I'm going to round that to 7. So I'm going to get 20 minus 7, which is $13. So when I get money back from the clerk, I should get $13, and I should actually get more than $13. Okay, because I rounded up, I'm actually going to get $13 and some change. Okay, so I need to know that when I get my money in my hand, I should have $13 in bills plus some extra cents to go with it. If I look at example B, let me scroll down a second. If I look at example B, I gave the waiter $40, so I'm going to do 40 minus, my bill cost $27.12. I'm just going to round that to the nearest whole amount again. So that's going to look at the 1 and keep it at 27, and that's going to make it 40 minus 27. When I do 40 minus 27, I'm going to get 13. So I should get about $13 back. This time I'm going to get less than 13 though. Because I rounded down, okay, they still have to account for that 12 cents. So I should get actually less than $13, so $12 but a bunch of cents back. Okay? And that is how you can use this in a real life situation when you're somewhere to make sure you're getting the correct amount of change back. Okay? That is it for the video. Have a wonderful night, and we will see you tomorrow.